A close friend of mine recently told me he was thinking of switching from ocean cruising to a European river cruise. And honestly, that conversation stopped me in my tracks. Because before he booked anything, I needed to tell him everything I wish someone had told me before my very first river cruise. And today, I'm sharing all of that with you right here on Cruisify. If you're someone who's done ocean cruises and you're now considering a river cruise, or even if it's your very first cruise ever, stay with me, because what I'm about to share could completely change how you plan your trip. The very first thing that hit me the moment I stepped onto a river cruise ship was this. This is nothing like ocean cruising. Nothing. And I mean that in the most surprising way possible. A river cruise feels much less like a cruise and much more like one of those escorted land tours, you know? The kind where a guide takes a group through Florida or Tanzania by bus. That's the energy, that's the vibe. You're traveling with a small, tight-knit group, anywhere from 100 to maybe 200 people maximum, and within 2 days, everyone knows your name, your cabin number, and probably what you had for breakfast, which is lovely if you enjoy that community feel. But if you're someone who likes to disappear into a crowd and do your own thing, river cruising will challenge you. Now, here's something that genuinely surprised me, how structured and fixed every single day is on a river cruise. Think of it like this. Your entire day is pre-planned down to the hour, and there's very little wiggle room. A typical day looks something like this. You get a wake-up announcement somewhere around 7:30 to 8 in the morning. So if you're a late sleeper, this will be an adjustment. Then you have roughly an hour for breakfast before you're heading out on your first included morning tour. You come back to the ship for lunch. Again, about an hour. Then you're either sailing to the next port, heading out on another tour, or just relaxing on board while the ship moves. Before dinner, there is a briefing session where they walk you through the next day's plan. Dinner follows, maybe some light entertainment, and then you wake up and do it all over again. On an ocean cruise, your day is yours to design. On a river cruise, the day is already designed for you. This one catches a lot of ocean cruisers completely off guard, and I've personally heard complaints about it just recently. On a river cruise, there is typically only one dining venue on the entire ship. Sometimes, there's a casual lounge option for lighter bites at lunch, but that's about it. The big thing to understand is food is only served during mealtimes. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, that's it. There is no room service. There are no late-night snacks. There's no grabbing something from a buffet at 3 p.m. I actually heard from someone just this week, experienced ocean cruiser, who went on a Viking river cruise and was genuinely frustrated because outside of those 3-meal windows, there was simply nothing available to eat. If you're used to the around-the-clock dining that ocean ships offer, this will be a real adjustment. So yes, everyone knows a river cruise ship is smaller than an ocean ship. That part isn't surprising. What is surprising is just how limited the onboard facilities are, and how similar every river cruise ship is to every other one. Here's why. These ships are built to strict size constraints. They have to fit under low bridges and squeeze through narrow locks, which means there's only so much they can do with the space. What you typically get is a lounge or bar area, a restaurant that fits everyone at once, a small reception desk, and a sun deck, sometimes with a small hot tub or plunge pool. What you don't get, a casino, specialty restaurants, multiple bars, a theater, a spa, or a proper fitness center. Most ships have at most a tiny gym with a treadmill, a bike, and a rowing machine. If you're someone who relies on those ocean ship amenities to enjoy your holiday, you'll want to mentally prepare for a much simpler onboard experience. Cabin choice on a river cruise basically comes down to one decision. Are you above or below the waterline? The lower deck cabins sit just at water level, with a window that peeks out right above the surface. They can feel a bit enclosed and are sometimes noisier when the ship is moving. So naturally, most people want to upgrade to the upper deck cabins with those gorgeous big windows or balconies. And they are beautiful until you dock. Because here's the thing, river ports are busy, and multiple ships often dock right alongside each other. So you could be paying a premium for that beautiful balcony view. And instead of scenic riverbanks, you're looking directly into the windows of another ship just a few feet away. It's one of those things you don't think about until it's happening. Ocean cruises usually follow a pretty predictable rhythm: sail overnight, wake up in a new port, spend the full day there. River cruising doesn't work like that at all. There's no set pattern. Some days you stop at 2 different places. Some days you stay in one port all day. Some nights the ship sails while you sleep, and some nights it doesn't move at all. It's much more port intensive, and the distances covered are actually quite small. On my last Viking and Emerald cruises, the same bus drivers and local guides were with us at every single stop, because they could just drive home each night and meet the ship again the next morning. On one Avalon Rhine cruise, the 2 ports that day were close enough that I had the option to cycle between them, only about 15 miles apart. One thing I read on Cruise Critic really put it into perspective. A riverboat might take up to 12 hours to cover a distance that a bus could do in 2. But the upside? You always have scenery while sailing, and you dock right in the heart of every town. No tenders, no transfers, just walk straight off into the action. Here's one of the biggest genuine advantages of river cruising: you will not get seasick. The water is calm, the movement is barely noticeable. And for a lot of people who've avoided cruising their whole lives because of motion sickness concerns, river cruising is the perfect entry point. I actually managed to get my father-in-law, someone completely obsessed with the idea of getting seasick, onto a river cruise for the first time because of this. However, there's a flip side to the smaller ship experience that's worth knowing. There is no medical center on board. On an ocean ship, if you feel unwell, you go to the ship's medical facility. On a river cruise, that doesn't exist. I personally experienced this on an AmaWaterways cruise between Bucharest and Budapest. I fell ill and needed a doctor. The cruise line did know of local medical centers and doctors along the route, and they arranged everything for me, which worked out fine. But it's something to be aware of, especially if you have any ongoing health considerations. River cruising, particularly on the classic European routes like the Rhine and the Danube, tends to attract a specific kind of traveler. The destinations along these rivers are largely historic towns and cultural landmarks, walking tours through old town centers, visits to cathedrals, stories of history and heritage, that naturally appeals to a more mature, culturally curious traveler. Now, things are slowly shifting. I've seen more food and wine tours appearing, more active hiking and cycling options on lines like AmaWaterways and Avalon. On a Viking cruise, we even attended a small opera performance in Vienna. But the core nature of where river cruises go means it's always going to lean towards a calm, curated, culturally focused experience. It's probably not the right fit for young families looking for entertainment or couples wanting to go out and party every night. And that's completely fine, because for the traveler who loves having everything organized and curated for them, river cruising is genuinely perfect. River cruises are not cheap, and if you compare the cost per day of a river cruise against an ocean cruise, the river cruise is almost always more expensive. But there are real reasons for that. The ships are smaller, so the costs can't be spread across thousands of passengers the way ocean ships do. And crucially, river cruises include a lot more in that price. Most include all your meals, beer and wine with dining at a minimum, all your excursions, Wi-Fi, and often transfers to and from the ship. So while the headline number looks higher, you're actually getting a much more all-inclusive experience than a typical ocean cruise fare. One thing I discovered fairly quickly is that river cruising doesn't reward repeat trips on the same route the way ocean cruising does. When I went back for a second Danube cruise and a second Rhine cruise, the experience felt very familiar very fast. Same ports, same tours, same things to see. Because the routes are geographically compact and the programs are so structured, there's very little room for a different experience second time around. That said, trying a completely new river is a whole different story. When I did an Emerald cruise from Bucharest to Budapest, going through the former Eastern European countries, I was seeing places and hearing stories I genuinely would have struggled to access on a regular land tour. And themed river cruises, like the famous Christmas markets cruises, are an experience that feels genuinely unique every time. My advice: do a river cruise when you have a specific river or a specific experience in mind. Don't repeat routes expecting something new. So there you have it, everything you need to know before booking your first river cruise. Go in with the right expectations and you will absolutely love it. If you're ready to start planning, head over to Cruisify, where we make finding and planning your perfect cruise simple and stress-free. Drop any questions in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next one.